Spotify is, you know, synonymous with music in our industry today, but it wasn't that long ago that Spotify was born. And looking back, it's amazing how fast 15 years have gone, and how Spotify went from something small to something that's ubiquitous in the space, right? Um, Part of the evolution has been to transform really what's going on in audio and streaming and listening, and how we're consuming content, and how so much of that is moving online. And Katie, you mentioned the other day that it's really, you guys, instead of calling it radio or audio, you're just calling it streaming, right? What are some of the words that you guys are using about how you're delivering this content, this old content, right, in new ways?
Yeah. So when we talk about the Spotify platform, I think we use both the terms digital audio as well as streaming audio to really
Mm,
describe that environment that Spotify is cultivating for users. When we're talking about digital or streaming audio, we're really talking about both music and podcasts, more recently added to the Spotify platform, that are listened through our app, website, and that can be across, the mobile phone itself, a desktop computer, but also cars, smart devices. And as those things really become adopted more and more, we're seeing usage in so many different moments across a person's day, and in many different places too.
it's so funny how podcasts have had such a resurgence over the last couple of years, and I think the pandemic has probably led to that, because people are consuming content differently, right? They're not watching as much TV, and but the name, right, the foundation of the name podcast comes from way back when Apple had their first listening device called the iPod, right? And so the podcasts were on the iPod, and the iPod doesn't even exist anymore. I still have one on my shelf that it's like a classic now, right? It's going to go in the Smithsonian. Um, but something that was created so long ago for a technology that's not even in existence anymore is having a resurgence. And I think you guys are probably seeing consumption of podcast content, spike pretty significantly. We're seeing the results in reporting across the board that's kind of the new hot thing, right?
Definitely, yeah. And as you mentioned, it's a medium that's actually been around quite a while.
Yeah.
What I think is new about podcasts over the last couple of years, and really when Spotify entered the space, is the introduction of it really being a streaming format. So
Mm.
rather than just downloading something to your iPod, listening kind of at your leisure at whatever time, now we have actual access to the streaming and the real-time data that comes from that, which really is making podcasts a lot more addressable and measurable for advertisers too.
I mean, that's super important, right? Because it used to be that we would get our books or our magazines or our newspapers, and we would open them up, right? Crazy as that may sound, and literally read the pages. But now so much is online, and so much of how we're engaging with content is digital, which opens up a whole new window of opportunities for advertisers to get their message out, and not only just get their message out, but then be able to track all that back through. And we'll get into the tracking in just a minute, but it is a new world of content consumption, and Spotify is really at the leading edge of that in terms of providing that out.
And Kevin, you
How?
mentioned the pandemic. I just wanted to call out. We definitely have seen streaming behavior only increase in the last year. I think back in 2019, eMarketer predicted that 2020 would be the first year that digital audio would surpass radio listening in the US. And that happened and more. In 2020, time spent with digital audio was 30% higher than that of broadcast radio
Holy
within
cow.
the US. And really, I think what's behind that, and I can speak, I've experienced this myself over the last year, as so many people have had to switch their ways of working to remote working. We're starting to really see screen fatigue. That's just the
Mm.
amount of times people are spending looking at screens, whether that's their phone or their computer or their TV, is really starting to weigh on people. And audio is actually really provides an escape from that. People still want to be informed, they want to be entertained, but they don't want to be staring at a device. We actually recently surveyed Gen Z and millennials, and 67% of them believe that audio is healing. 69% of them agree that they use audio to reduce their stress levels. So it's really kind of bringing in these new opportunities to reach people in really different moments where they might not be addressable with normal like screen behavior.
Yeah. What have you guys seen in terms of the consumption? And I know I'm kind of asking this out of the blue, but do you see more time spent on mobile devices on the platform or desktop, or is there anything you can give us on kind of the breakdown of how people, where people are consuming or what device they're consuming it on? Just high
Yeah,
level.
sure. I recall at the beginning of like maybe March through June of 2020, we saw a pretty steep decline in car listening.
Mm.
As just one example, as you can imagine, a lot of
And nobody
people
was driving to work,
were
so no.
commuting every day, exactly. And we saw a sharper increase in like home speaker usage throughout the day and in different moments. So there's definitely been an impact on users' listening habits. But that was about a year ago. I haven't really seen how that's sort of leveled out as people are reaching the new normal.
Yes, the new normal, it seems to change every week.
Yeah.
Just as soon as we get used to one, it changes on us. But that takes us to the next piece of, and you mentioned several of those pieces, right? The screen fatigue, the time spent away from the office, time spent in different locations. With the 5G now being available so broadly across the United States, it opens up a whole new avenue for people to consume different types of media. And the big push now is for people who spent all day in their house working from home to get out of the house, right? To go to the park or go take a walk or go get outside. And it just creates so many more opportunities for streaming, specifically audio, to really take root in people's lives as part of the habit of what they're doing. And because of the varied nature of what you guys offer, right? We just asked in the beginning of the webinar, what's the last channel people listen to, right? And to throw it in there, and we got all different kinds, different kinds of responses. And as you said before, it changes throughout the day, right? You had talked before when we were talking offline about how different points of the day you see different spikes and different kinds of content being consumed, like workday music and then workout music. So in the morning, you get a higher concentration of different types, and then after work, different types, right? Party music and things when people are not working, and then the softer kind of music during the day when people are trying to kind of calm their minds and focus on things. So you've really created a lifestyle platform more so than a streaming platform. Can you talk a little bit about how people engage throughout the day, and why music is so important to people throughout their, everything that they're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And we definitely see that. I think even when I think about my own habits, I wake up in the morning, I put a song on as I'm getting ready, or I might be listening to the latest episode of my favorite podcast as I'm commuting to work in the morning. Throughout the day, I'm listening as I'm working, I'm listening as I'm walking to get lunch, I'm listening as I'm cooking or working out. And so there's just so many moments that our users are tapping into audio to really like fill and enhance their moments throughout the day. What's really exciting for advertisers is that we do make that data available for targeting. And so when you think about how you're reaching people, you not only know kind of demographic details, location details, et cetera, but you can also tailor your message towards the specific moment that someone's listening in. So you can think about how some brands might want to target people while they're cooking dinner and listening to cooking related playlists. Some brands might be really interested in reaching people as they're in sort of that focus mindset. And so we really have a whole swath of offerings to really help you narrow in on not just the audience, but the moment and the context they're listening into.
So you mentioned the moment, right? And that's one of the most interesting pieces of why streaming works, because you don't have to have a block of time where you dedicate and focus to doing just that, right? If you're watching TV, you want to watch a 30-minute program and you have to have that block of time to do it. Or if you're doing other things, you need to block out that time, where streaming is something that you can participate in all day long, at any time, at any point during the day. And it doesn't require you huge consumptions of time, right? If you just want one song, or you're walking down the hall, you're like, okay, I just need to get my head in a different space, and you got 3 minutes and you turn on a song, right? It, from a consumption standpoint, we can consume a lot more in smaller doses, which means from an advertising standpoint, as an advertiser, I have the ability to reach you throughout the day, not only when you've just dedicated specific time for things, right?
Yep. And those little moments really add up. I think we see, I might not get the stat exactly right, but somewhere around 2.5 hours per day with our daily active listeners. So it really does add up to a lot of time spent with Spotify. The other thing that I think streaming really adds to the table is a level of personalization. So you mentioned like not having to necessarily block out like 30-minute time. People do spend a lot of time listening, but they can do it at their own schedule.
Right.
So it's not like a historic radio show or TV show where you have to make sure you're there when it's airing. And that level of personalization really increases engagement and really allows us to tailor the experience for our users with the content they're listening to, but also with advertising to them specifically and really make it individual.
I think that takes us nicely into our next topic. And one of the questions that came in is the targeting and specificity there. And I think when I'm thinking about my playlists and what I listen to, I think the only ad that somebody could realistically serve me is a mental institution because of the very nature of all the different music, right? How can you target somebody who listens to, electronica and country and 80s and pop and, all this kind of stuff, plus podcasts? But you guys go a lot more granular into the targeting nature of it and really reach in to so many different levels. So let's start with behavior and some of the behavioral targeting that you guys have, and then how that plays into what people are currently listening to and how you can segment or segue between those two.
Definitely. So we offer some really interesting behavioral targeting. If you work directly with one of our sales reps, we have a really long extensive menu of targeting capabilities. I specifically focus on our self-serve advertising platform, which is called Spotify Ad Studio. And on Ad Studio, our primary behavioral targeting is based on either real-time or historical listening trends. So on the historical side, we have cultivated a bunch of interest segments based on past listening behavior to different types of podcast content, different playlists, listening on different platforms. So you can target someone who has shown and demonstrated an interest in something like cooking or something like sports. And then on the flip side, when we have our real-time behavioral targeting, we have real-time context targeting, where you can target someone who's currently listening to a chill playlist or a running playlist. We also have genre targeting. So if you have a music strategy, or if you want to make sure that the background music of your ad is really tied and seamless with that user experience, you can target them while they're listening to specific genres as well. And then we've seen advertisers get really creative with us. One of my absolute favorite examples is from a couple of years ago with Snickers. And Kevin, maybe this would have been a good ad campaign for you because I don't know if you're all familiar with their overarching campaign, which is "You're not you when you're hungry."
Yeah, they had Betty White do a couple of those.
Yeah, you've probably seen a lot of their TV spots. And it's such a great concept. Really, the concept is like when you're hungry, you become someone very different from yourself, which I know I can relate to. But the way they brought that to life on Spotify was so interesting. They tapped into our behavioral data to target people who were listening to music that was different than their typical listening behavior. And we're able to target them with a message that basically was saying like, hey, you're listening to something a little bit different. Are you hungry? Grab a Snickers if so. And it's really clever usage of our first party data.
That is funny. And that's fantastic. So you can target by, segments. So if somebody wanted to be in, a pop segment or something, but you can also target by what people are currently listening to, historic, and you can start building, audiences or intent data based off of what they've listened to from either music or podcasts.
Yep.
It seems like the options are really limitless in terms of how you guys target. One of the questions,
people are very honest when they're listening to, right? Like, if you think about your own listening behavior, Kevin, you just shared that you listen to so many different things, right? You're not trying to be cool while you're listening and choosing what you're listening to. You're really listening to something that you're genuinely interested in hearing. So that like the segments that we have are really based on kind of honest data from our users.
That is That is a really unique insight, because so often as marketers, right, as agencies, we're skeptical of the data that's coming in. How did the data get created, right? How clean is this data? How accurate is the targeting? But that is true, right? We listen to what we listen to, and we like what we like, and it's very honest and straightforward. That's a really cool visualization on that. The one of the questions that did come in is, so Spotify has several different solutions, right? They have the freemium solution, they have the premium solution. How, and this may kind of take this in a different reach, but for targeting, is there ways for advertisers to target people who are the premium listeners? Obviously, you don't get the audio ads that are coming through, but are there other ways for them to leverage the data from the premium advertisers or premium customers?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about our advertising products as a whole, because I know not everyone's maybe a Spotify user, but especially not everyone might be a free Spotify user. So on Spotify, we, as you mentioned, have a couple of different ways of monetizing our app. We have a premium app where folks pay a monthly subscription fee. And in doing that, they no longer receive our standard kind of audio video display ads. They also have a lot more control over their listening experience. So they can select, I want to listen to this specific track, build out their own cues, etc.
Replay and things.
Yep. And then we have a free version of the app, which is used a lot around the world. It's amazing that we're able to provide like so much music just at the tips of people's fingers for free. And the way we monetize on that side is primarily through advertising. And that's where we run kind of our audio ads. We also have video and display ads that we really focus on when people are looking at the screen. Maybe they're making a playlist themselves. So most of our ad products are specifically to that free audience. However, with the introduction of podcasts, I'm sure people have experienced listening to podcasts on Spotify, and there are ads within podcasts for both free and premium users. So we're starting to kind of blur the lines a little bit between those two sets of users.
Interesting. So beyond just what you're listening to, you guys have the ability to affect small brands, regional brands, as well as national brands. Can you talk a little bit about location-based tracking that you guys have to add another layer onto, an advertiser's request?
Definitely, yeah. So we have those behavioral segments based on Spotify's first-party data, which I discussed already. We also have demographic targeting and location targeting based on, again, Spotify's first-party understanding of our users. And so you can reach specific age groups, specific gender cohorts, and you can also target down to the zip code level based on IP address. And that's true globally. So around the world, we can get down to that postal code level.
The granularity of how far we can go is a double-edged sword, right? We deal with this all the time as agencies working with brands. They're like, I want this zip code in rural Wisconsin. Like, there's 3 people in that zip code. Help me out a little bit. When you're doing campaigns that are more geographically targeted, do you suggest often working more towards a DMA instead of the zip codes, or what are some suggestions you have for people building more regionally targeted campaigns?
Yeah, it's always a trade-off, right, between kind of reaching your extremely niche target audience and also achieving the scale that you'd like to see for your campaign. On Ad Studio, we actually have a tool as you're building out the campaign to understand how all of your targeting selections impact potential reach, your likelihood to deliver your budget in full, frequency, things like that. And so as you're kind of narrowing down your audience, you can see kind of where that line might be. So in some cases, targeting one zip code might be totally sufficient if you're targeting a large zip code that has a lot of people in it, or a lot of Spotify users in it specifically.
Manhattan,
right?
New York, right?
Exactly, yeah. But of course, it's always kind of a test and learn situation, but we do provide that visibility. So as you're building out your campaign, you can really easily see the impact of those choices.
Nice. We did have a couple questions that came in and all around kind of one specific point. So I'm sorry to hit you cold on this, but the question was basically around podcast ads on the self-serve platform. Are the podcast ads going to be available on the self-serve platform? If not, when? And what are some of the requirements there? I don't know if you're
Yes.
prepared to
I'd be
answer that,
happy,
but that
yeah,
question did
happy
come
to talk
in.
about that. So we're actually beta testing that right now within the US. So advertisers who are part of our beta test can go into Spotify Ad Studio. They can reach their audience as they're listening to a network of podcasts that we have sort of monetization rights for. So that's been really exciting. We've seen really promising results so far, and hoping to launch that in the next few months more
Awesome.
broadly.
It seems like a lot of people today on the webinar are very interested in the self-serve platform, which is great. That is good news. So if you guys do have additional questions, we'll have contact information at the end. You can follow up and get better timelines or more information there. One of the other questions that did come in was on layering targeting, interest targeting, real-time contexts. It seems like the answer is yes, but definitely want to ask the question, right? Can you layer on geo-targeting and interest levels, and how far can you go on that? And I think we can go too far, right? As we just talked about with the zip code targeting, but is it possible to blend a lot of those things together in a campaign?
It is, yeah. So within Ad Studio, the way it's set up is you can select, you can layer on demographic targeting, location targeting, and then one of our more advanced like behavioral segments or targeting features. You can choose multiple interest segments or multiple real-time contexts that you want to reach people in. But you cannot, for example, do real-time context targeting and also genre targeting.
Got it. That makes sense. You've mentioned Ad Studio several different times, and that naturally takes us into the next part, right? How do I do-wop that for anybody who's a fan of the 50s music? But this is kind of the crux of using audio, right? How do I create audio ads for agencies that are really focused in the digital marketplace? So often creating banner ads and digital marketplace ads is second nature for them, but creating audio ads is something that's completely outside of their normal everyday practices. So you guys have a solution to help agencies that aren't quite ready to do the recording stuff themselves, right?
We do, yeah. We're really proud of the creative tools that we offer on Ad Studio. I think it makes audio, which, as you mentioned, Kevin, is a kind of a new medium for some advertisers, or maybe it feels like, oh, that's that team over there that works on audio. We have a tool right within Ad Studio where you can just type in your script and actually get paired with a professional voiceover artist. You can choose from our existing catalog of background tracks, make all of your selections, and then we'll produce that ad for you at no additional charge, and have that turned around within like 24 to 48 hours.
Holy cow.
We see a lot of usage and a lot of great feedback on that feature.
So what is some of the feedback that you're getting? Because sometimes that's a challenge, right? The CEO wants to hear his voice on the ad, and you're like, yeah, but your voice sounds like a screeching bird, right? We shouldn't be using that. Is the recommendation to use professional voiceover actors and artists when you're doing these, because of the consistency and the quality that comes out versus somebody within your own organization?
Yeah, I think it depends on the brand and what it is that you're promoting and how well known. Maybe if you do have a persona that's well known, like it can be very useful to take advantage of that. But if you're promoting a brand that maybe doesn't have a well-known person associated with it, the feedback that we've gotten is that, even just the ease of getting a professional voiceover artist to record it for you, you can give them instructions on the tone you're looking for and the pronunciation of certain words, all within the platform itself, really results in ads that are much better suited for the Spotify platform than cobbling to something together, which I know can be challenging anyway.
Yeah, because that's the fear, right? Okay, so I'm going to do an audio ad. Now I've got to get somebody, and you're looking around the room, right? Okay, who's got a voice that we can use to do this? And
we will take, if you already have an audio asset, we're happy to take it. Similarly with video, we do offer video advertising on Ad Studio. And so a lot of times people will upload assets that maybe they developed for social or some other platform. It's just really easy to just throw that up on Spotify as well. But with audio, I think we sometimes get questions about kind of where to start with my script. Like, how do I kind of tackle that first, that blank page with that piece of the puzzle? Be happy to share some best practices with the group as well.
Great. Now, is that just for ads running in the US, or can you do international things as well with your voiceover people?
We can do it all international. So within Ad Studio, you can target, I don't have the exact number of markets offhand, but it's almost all markets that Spotify is live in. You can reach users across the world. And as long as you type in the script in whatever language you'd like it to be in, we have voiceover artists from around the world ready to record and produce that ad for you.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. So we can get hyper granular with the targeting. We can get national with the targeting. We can go global with the targeting. We do interest based. It sounds like there's nothing you can't do with the with the platform that you have there. Plus, you have voiceover artists that can actually record the campaigns for you.
Yeah, we're really excited, and we've seen so much growth. We talk about international. I think we've launched Ad Studio in 9 new markets in the last year, and so really bringing it more and more to not just advertisers in the US, but really all around the world.
So one of the key things now is the metrics, right? So we've got all these cool things, cool ways to target, but the analytics really is what seals the deal at the end of the day, right? Because we're talking to a ton of digital agencies already, this is could be considered a shift from their traditional digital advertising to audio streaming, digital music, whatever name we want to apply to it. Can they get the same level of reporting back that they have historically gotten from their other digital assets?
And that's really the power of streaming audio and digital audio in comparison to something like radio. It really makes the medium more addressable and therefore more measurable too. And so with your campaign, we provide real-time reporting. So as soon as you launch that campaign, you'll start to see the metrics come in just as you would expect from other digital ad platforms. And you can see the actual number of impressions that were really served. You know, it's not just kind of guessing how many people are tuning into this radio show, right?
Sure.
But we also measure reach, frequency, completion rate of the ad. Most of our ad units are also clickable. And so that allows for that sort of real-time engagement with the audience, and you can measure that click-through rate. And we also provide audience insights so you can understand who was actually reached by your campaign, by age group, by gender, by platform, and by the genre that they were listening to at the time.
Oh, that's awesome. So it seems like it checks all the boxes for traditional digital advertisers to move in the audio space. You guys have really covered all the bases in terms of providing them everything that they need, from creative assets to reporting and analytics to targeting, everything up and down the chain. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Are you seeing that, and this may be a little beyond this conversation, but the conversion metrics, because you're able to target people in such a unique and specific way, I would guess that this should enhance a lot of the things that people are doing, especially against some generic targeting, because of the level of detail you can get into.
Yeah, we've seen some really amazing performance, especially in like brand metrics. So kind of introducing your brand, building awareness and consideration for your brand. We've run quite a few brand lift studies with folks like Nielsen and Kantar, and really shows that audio plays a really special role in driving that consideration and action. So yeah, it's been awesome to see kind of where audio fits within your larger media mix and driving those outcomes.
And that's a fantastic point. Of this is kind of that gap, bridges that gap between traditional digital advertising that a lot of people are doing and some of the other media sources, right? TV and print and radio. And like, well, I want to get there, but I'm not able to get the details back and the analytics back. So I don't know exactly how those are working. So it's kind of a black box. So this kind of bridges the gap and gets people into audio without having to lose those metrics that they're familiar with or comfortable with.
Yeah, we like to think that we've built a platform that makes audio accessible to digital advertisers and makes digital accessible to more like traditional audio advertisers as well.
Yeah, nice. So with all of this data coming back and all the analytics that you're able to pull, here's the shameless plug for TapClicks at the end here, right? The TapClicks platform really for the agencies works as a centralization point, right? You can pull all of your data from all your campaigns back into one single source and see all of your reporting in one place, which is critical for agencies when you're dealing with so many different campaigns that are out there. Being able to see all your data in one source allows you to make better decisions across the board on all your campaigns, and it allows you to make clear, concise, specific optimizations on those. You can export that data then through a variety of different sources to other places, send it off to your customers. And we also have an operations standpoint part of the platform where we can set up the campaigns for you and monitor all of, make sure that the entire process is transparent for you. So you get all of that detail and you make sure nothing falls through the cracks along the way. So if you're interested in getting your Spotify data into your TapClicks instance, definitely hit up your customer service rep and they can figure out how to get that all connected up for you. If you don't have a TapClicks instance, you can get one for free by going to tapclicks.com and signing up for our free trial. You can see kind of the power of the platform and how it pulls everything together for you. So that's just, for marketers, you're dealing with so much out there and trying to do more with less. TapClicks really builds the efficiency in, and we found people are taking reporting from being 100 hours a week or spent in reporting down to about 1 to 2 hours a week. So the economies of scale are massive for people coming on the platform and really getting better visualizations, automating much of that process that's manual today for you guys. So if you're interested in that, definitely check out our platform and our trial there. Well, that takes us to the QA part of our session here. We've had several that have come in, so let me just kind of rip through a few more of these. If you do have questions, this is a great time to throw them in, and we'll try to address all of those. One of the questions that came in, how the campaign optimizations work. So when you're in a campaign, how are people able to optimize? What are they able to do to tweak and change things on the fly as the campaign is going?
Yeah, great question. So within Ad Studio, you can make edits throughout your whole campaign, basically in real time. So as you're looking at that real-time reporting, either within the Ad Studio dashboard or within TapClicks instance, you can identify, hey, this ad is maybe outperforming this one. If you're doing an A/B test, I'm going to divert the rest of my budget over to this other ad over here. You can, change your flight dates. You can change, really make any edits you'd like to on the fly. And that's something that we really encourage people to do, to use the platform to kind of test and learn and optimize along the way.
Sure. Especially if it's new to people and they're not, super familiar with this kind of media source. Another question, what is the pricing based off of? Is it a CPM, CPA, CPC model? How do you set up the campaigns?
Yeah, so right now our pricing is on a CPM model, and we have a campaign minimum of $250 in the US, so can really run very small campaigns all the way up to very large campaigns as well.
Great. So they can definitely dip their toe in and try to figure out some things. Now, here it comes the question we've been bantering around, the entire time. A $250 campaign with national targeting is probably not going to deliver the results that you're looking for, right? It doesn't have the coverage to get that far. So if you're going to dip your toe in, if you're going to start a smaller campaign, I'm guessing the answer is start with something very targeted and then expand from there.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. We definitely see that, a frequency of ads under like 2 or 3, especially over the lifetime of the campaign, really results in less impact on brand awareness. As you can imagine, people sometimes have to hear a message a couple of times before it starts to resonate. And so as you're building out your campaign and seeing the prediction across impressions, reach, and frequency, you can kind of optimize based on your budget, your targeting parameters, and your flight length to understand and really kind of reach that ideal place that you'd like to be.
So the old radio axiom of repeat it 3 times still applies to this space, right?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we're still trying to get users to remember a message, and repetition can't hurt there.
Yeah. It's so funny when you still hear on the radio today, somebody says the phone number 3 times. You're like, oh, are we still doing that 3 times thing? But behavioralists say it works, so they keep doing it. Another question that came in, even though self-serve podcasts are in beta testing, sounds like they're going to be available very soon. Would you recommend for or against utilizing the current self-serve platform to promote podcasts?
Great question. So we actually see a lot of folks coming in to promote their own podcast, which is a little bit different than running podcast advertising, although the words we're using here are very overlapping, right? And so, yes, we already see a lot of usage from folks who are promoting their own podcast. You can really dig into some of those targeting capabilities I mentioned, like interest targeting, if you want to target people who have in the past listened to business and finance podcasts. You can do that today with reaching them in our music context.
Great. Is it too late to be added to the beta for podcast ads in the self-serve platform?
It is not too late. So we can make sure to send out the link in a follow-up for how to be added to the waitlist.
Okay, great. So Kristen, for that question, as we get to kind of the end here, everybody who's on, we will be sending out a recording of this to you. So you'll have that in case you want to go through it again, you missed something, or you have somebody who works with you or somebody you know who would like to hear this or understand this, you can send it out to them as well. We'll have the contact information to reach back out to us in that. So you'll have all the information you need in the email that follows this shortly after that. Man, we covered so much ground on this, so it's just amazing what you guys have. So thank you so much. Let's see, one last question here. How should we be thinking of price increase cadence for premium as penetration for premium increases, lower TAM? So I think to kind of maybe summarize that question is how is price then factored into some of the reach and frequency people are going after? So as the agencies are talking to the brands and they're trying to increase the campaigns, increase the reach, increase the frequency, it seems like the budget needs to increase and the price needs to increase commensurate to that to continue to hit the same targets. I think that's the same as any digital campaign. When you're increasing the price, the price typically goes up, right? If you have a target audience you're going after and you need more of that target audience, often your CPC has to go up a little bit more to get that audience, or your effective CPC has to go up if you're increasing the reach because you're competing against other people in the marketplace there.
Yeah, and today our pricing is not on an auction model, and so it's not exactly the same dynamics that you might expect in what you just described, Kevin.
Okay.
But we do have variable pricing that changes depending on the demand that we're seeing on our end, as well as lots of other factors too. So when you go into Ad Studio and book your campaign, you'll see a quote for the price at that time, and the price you see at that time will be the price that you pay for the whole length of the campaign.
And this brings up a great point as we're coming into the fall season, the holiday season. Do you see a pretty steep spike in demand, Thanksgiving through the end of the year, as is traditional on other terrestrial media sources?
We do, yeah, as you would expect. Holidays is a big time of year for us, as it is, I think, for all advertisers and ad platforms. But certainly still recommend going in and seeing how you can play in that space and start testing it out.
And so often with linear radio, et cetera, you have to pre-buy that stuff in, so it's too late. If you're wanting to get in now, there's much fewer opportunities. But it sounds like with you guys, there's still plenty of opportunity for people to include this in media plans, get their brands involved, and get them buying in through the fourth quarter, right?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, the lead time to set up a campaign is really quite short. If you're not using our creative tools, it can be as little as 24 hours. If you are using the creative tools, it can still be as little as 24 hours, but up to about 48 hours. And so it really is a great way to also think about if you get incremental budget at the end of the year or need to shift things around kind of at the last minute, Ad Studio is a really good tool to consider.
And that's fantastic because you're always worried about what the roadblocks are going to be to launching your campaign. And so often it's, creative design or creative execution, et cetera, and setup times. But what you're saying is you guys work faster than the clients work on approvals, right? You could be waiting a week for a client to approve this stuff. You guys are really on it and can turn that stuff around quickly for these agencies that are out there.
Yep. Yeah. And I think, we're hopefully coming out of the end of COVID time soon, but that was something that we saw as a really unique value in the past year, is being able to change your creatives. Maybe you have stores that are closing or stores that are opening, and giving that flexibility to turn around creative really quickly, and get some new messages out in market fast, really became valuable for a lot of our advertisers.
So you have flexibility on ad creation and responsiveness on ad creation. You have flexibility on targeting, both regional and national, by interest data, by intent data, et cetera. You have the reach into mobile, reach into desktop. It sounds like you guys have everything. And then you can pull all of that data back. You can obviously see it in the Spotify platform and your reporting. And if you want to see how it compares against all your other campaigns, you can pull it into TapClicks. So really tied the bow on this one for the advertisers, right? You guys have made it easy for them to get their campaign started, and we make it easy for them to visualize that data on the back end. So that's all we can do, right? We've handed it off to everybody with a bow and a nice candy on top. So thank you so much, Katie, for your time today. And I think this was super fun. Everybody was really engaged with this. We had a ton of questions come in. So thank you, everybody, for your questions. If you do have questions after we're all done, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to answer those questions offline for you as well. That is what we had for you today. Any last comments there, Katie, for us?
No, just thank you so much for having me. This was really fun. And big thanks to TapClicks for being such a great partner of ours. I also wanted to quickly plug, just yesterday, we released some new research that dives into the impact of audio, and Spotify specifically, on the brain. So if anyone's a bit of a nerd like I am, definitely recommend checking that out. And we can include that in a follow-up email as well.
And you said it has kind of a cool, catchy title to it. What was it called?
It's called Sonic Science.
Sonic Science. Man, that is
yeah,
nerdy, if anything, right?
It's very nerdy, but I love it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining. We will see you all next time. And Katie, thank you for participating today.
Thanks so much. Have a great
Thanks,
day.
guys. Bye.